Hello, this is Yogeshwar 7000 again, and I'm back with another very interesting, very interesting topic today. And today, this topic will cover, in general terms, without going into the divisional charts, how to make a successful astrologer. And when I say successful astrologer, it does not necessarily mean that you have to become a professional astrologer. You could be an astrologer and still not be a professional astrologer. I mean, I'm not a professional astrologer. So through this video, I'm not recommending anybody to take astrology up as a profession. I have my own reasons not to be a professional astrologer, but in general terms, we'll discuss today that what are the combinations, what are those planets, what is your birth chart look like to make you a successful astrologer, or rather gain knowledge in astrology and be a good astrologer. So going into the planets, the most primary planet for being a good astrologer or getting astrological knowledge rather is the planet Jupiter. And Jupiter is an extremely sattvic planet, even more sattvic as described by a few sages, that it's even more sattvic than the sun and the moon. And wherever sattva is, and people who are not aware of these three gunas, sattva, tamas, and rajas, wherever sattva is, there is pure consciousness and pure knowledge which is coming directly from the gods. So Jupiter plays an extremely important in attaining that knowledge, that higher level of knowledge which we don't use in our day-to-day lives. So one has to look at the placement of Jupiter, which is very important. Where is it placed? Is it a Lagna Lord? Is it placed in good houses, meaning which is it placed in the Lagna or the 5th or the 9th or the Kendra houses, which are the 1, 4, 7 and 10 houses? What is the strength of Jupiter? Are there any malefic aspects on Jupiter or not? And you'll find out through various ways. As far as strength is concerned, you can find the Shadbal, which is the sixfold strength, whether it's exalted or not. So all these factors as regards to the planet Jupiter will tell you whether that person has that combination to make a very successful or a great astrologer. Once again, I'm not confusing success with being professional. Another very important planet which contributes very highly to becoming a good astrologer is the planet Mercury, because Mercury, again, it's about intelligence. Of course, there's a difference between knowledge and intelligence. The pure knowledge, which is unadulterated knowledge, comes from the planet Jupiter. And Mercury is more of a rajasic knowledge, which gives knowledge, or intelligence rather, which is more related to being a little more materialistic and more rajasic. It could be in terms of money, it could be in terms of the house of profession, because as we know that Mercury is a karaka of the 10th house as well. So that's more rajasic. So how is it connected with astrology, you're going to ask me? Well, because Mercury is also associated or connected very directly with mathematics. And today we may not need a lot of mathematics to create birth charts and create all those intricate calculations which are required to create birth charts and do calculations for Vedic astrology, because softwares are very easily available. But originally, when these softwares were not available and everything had to be done through hand and mathematical calculations, math played a very important role, and the planet Mercury is directly connected with math. So one has to look at the planet math also as far as Vedic astrology is concerned, because if you cannot create a chart, how will you analyze it? So that's another planet. The other planet which contributes greatly to the knowledge of astrology is the planet Sun. Sun again is a very sattvic planet, and the Sun represents the 4 Vedas. And of course, Jyotish or Vedic astrology is not directly connected with the Vedas. It's an arm, it's one of the limbs of Vedas, but there is a connection there. And the Puranas, or the ancient scriptures, do describe that the great god Hanuman had learned the knowledge of astrology from his guru, and his guru was the planet Sun. So there's a very direct connection there with Sun and Vedic astrology. So look at the placement of Sun once again. You know, how strong is Sun placed, whether it's a benefic planet for the chart or not. Just like Jupiter you would have considered, or Mercury you would have considered. And what is the strength? Look at the 6-fold strength of the planet. How is it placed in the Ashtak Varga? Whether it's placed in a bad malefic house, or whether it's placed in a good house, like the 5th, 9th, or the ascendant, or the Kendra houses, whether there are benefic influences or aspects on the planet Sun or not, whether it's exalted or debilitated, all these things make a lot of difference. So another planet, what we just discussed was Jupiter, Mercury, and then another planet is Sun, which we have to take into consideration as far as the knowledge of Vedic astrology is concerned. Another very important planet is the planet Ketu, and Ketu is about spirituality. Once again, Ketu is a very spiritual planet, but Ketu is about more, not the spirituality of the planet Jupiter, which is pure and unadulterated, but Ketu is more about mystical sciences and tantra and the power of mantras and something which is hidden, so on and so forth. And as we know that the house, the natural rulership of that house, of the 8th house, which is about hidden mystical sciences, is the zodiac sign of Scorpio, and Ketu co-rules that zodiac sign of Scorpio along with Mars. We know that, but that's another discussion. But Ketu as a general rule as a planet, it's also a moksha karaka, because it's extremely spiritual, because spirituality eventually leads to your moksha. See how Ketu is placed in a birth chart, whether it's placed in good houses, whether it's placed in bad houses, whether it's debilitated, exalted, so on and so forth. And Ketu does exceptionally well in the houses which are ruled by the planet Jupiter. So there's a very direct connection of Ketu with Jupiter, and Jupiter is about spirituality and pure and unadulterated knowledge, and Ketu is about knowledge as well, and spirituality and mystical sciences, and therefore Ketu becomes also a very, very extremely important planet as far as gaining knowledge of Vedic astrology is concerned. Now we discussed the planets. Let's go to the houses. The houses, of course, the ascendant is going to give you an indication what planet actually affects the ascendant most. That is going to give you an indication. Look at the 5th house, which is a house of intelligence, because again, you know, Vedic astrology, if a person is not intelligent, how will he create charts and analyze charts and do his own analytical analysis of a birth chart? 5th house, extremely important. And also look at the 9th house, which is the house of religion and higher knowledge. So it's more than just pure intelligence, it's pure consciousness and pure knowledge, which is represented by the 9th house. It's the house of the guru. Are you going to get, because in the traditional Vedic astrology, a good Vedic astrologer is one who actually has not just gone to YouTubes and read it. He is from the Guru Parampara, or the Guru tradition, where he has learned it from the Guru. That's how he gains that real knowledge. So look at the ninth house, whether he has the blessing of the guru or not, as far as getting this divine knowledge is concerned. And of course, ninth house, other than the guru, it is representing higher knowledge as well. So look at the ninth house, extremely important. Another important thing which one has to look at is the eighth house. The eighth house, as we know, is a house of, hidden, anything which is hidden, which is about mystical sciences, mysteries, hidden knowledge, because Jyotish, as we know, over the last thousands of years, had been not out open in the public. Of course, thanks to the internet, now it's getting more and more popular and getting open. But traditionally, if we look at the last few thousand years, it was only restricted to the Brahmanas or people who had exposure, or who had the ways and means to go and attain this great knowledge of Vedic astrology. So it's a hidden, mysterious science represented by the eighth house. So look at the eighth house, how well the lord of the eighth house is, what planets are placed in the eighth house, and then you can get a very clear indication of how you're going to acquire this mysterious, mystical science. Well, by the way, I came across a birth chart of a very, very successful astrologer of recent times, whose Jupiter, although it's debilitated, it is sitting in his eighth house. So Jupiter is about gaining knowledge. It's sitting in the eighth house, and I've seen this astrologer who has created a revolution, and in terms of bringing out some secrets which were hidden over a few hundred years, or maybe 1,000 years or so. And the interesting thing about this astrologer is that because of his Jupiter placement in the eighth house, probably in the last 10 years he must have visited thousands and thousands of astrologers, and he keeps going there and trying to find out the mysteries and interviews and putting them on YouTubes, and trying to figure out as to what the real knowledge is, starting from all kinds of astrology, Gemini, Bhrigu, or Parashara, interviewing astrologers from all around, at least India, if not all around the world, maybe all around the world as well. So that Jupiter, although debilitated in the eighth house, has contributed to that. His deep desire, his passion to go and find out those mysteries from the hidden and bring it out. So I'm not going to name that astrologer. He's getting pretty popular in these recent times. So people who know about his birth chart will understand whom I'm talking about. But I cannot mention any names here in this video, in this YouTube channel. Another very important chart which you see on this screen is a chart of whom I consider one of the best astrologers in the world. And once again, I cannot bring up his name here on this channel. But if you look at this chart on the screen, again, this is a chart of a traditional astrologer whose family has been in astrology over the last several generations rather, and he was in a government job, and he quit his government job, and he is into full-time astrology and giving all this knowledge to all of us all around the world. He's very respected and very accomplished, and there are only a few who could match his level of knowledge as far as, at least as far as Vedic astrology is concerned. He's done a lot of research in Gemini astrology, Parashara, Bhrigu, all across, and it's kind of amazing as to the level of the knowledge he has. So look at his birth chart here. Look at Jupiter. Jupiter is sitting in its own house. In this chart, I may have some incorrection as far as the degrees are concerned, because some softwares create different degrees, so don't look at those degrees which I mentioned here, but look at the placement of planets here in this birth chart. Look at how Jupiter is placed in its own sign of Pisces. That itself is saying that, well, he's an accomplished Vedic scholar. And I'm not bringing his D60 chart, which tells about his past life connection with Vedic astrology. And maybe in some other video I can bring that up also and explain it to you, that how he has carried his knowledge, his past life knowledge of Vedic astrology into this life. And it manifests so clearly in his birth chart. And we are just looking at his basic, the Lagna chart right now on the screen. So Jupiter, as you see, and we discussed how important Jupiter is, because it's about pure knowledge, pure consciousness, and it's sitting in its Lagna, his Lagnesh itself, the Lord of the Lagna itself is sitting in the Lagna, in its own house of Pisces. Another thing which we had discussed was the 9th house. Look at the 9th house, Lord, which is Mars, placed in a Kendra house. Once again, the 9th house is about spiritual knowledge, real knowledge, and Guru Parampara also. He had a guru, and he acquired this knowledge through a guru, thanks to his guru, you know, a Guru Shishya Parampara. And look at how it's beautifully placed in the Kendra house. Look at Ketu here, which we just discussed. Ketu, of course, if you look at Ketu, and Ketu, by the way, is also associated with mathematics, just like Mercury is. We discussed that Mercury has a connection with mathematics, so it's very critical for astrologers to have a good Mercury. But again, Ketu is also associated with maths. So look at where Ketu is placed, and it is sitting right there in his house of profession. He's a professional astrologer, and it's exalted. Well, according to Parashara considered Ketu exalted in Scorpio, but others consider Ketu exalted in Sagittarius as well, and Ketu is sitting in the zodiac sign of Jupiter as well, and in the Kendra house. It's again showing how beautifully Ketu is placed. So 3 planets, Ketu, Mars again, Lord of the 9th house, Jupiter in its own sign, and the Lord of the 8th house, which we just discussed, sitting in the 5th house, again a Trikona house. So very beautifully placed. The 8th house Lord is sitting in the 5th house, which is a Trikona house, and that's how he could dig deep into the mysteries and things which are hidden, and bring it out and research and bring it out to the society for the benefit of the society. So I just wanted to share this very important, interesting chart here with you, to explain you how there are beautiful combinations here to make into a very successful Vedic astrologer. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. In the meanwhile, I will recommend subscribe to my channel and check out my website. There is a link below, and I will see you with an interesting topic very soon. Goodbye.